Jai Saparikar Shri Guru Gauranga Kandharvika Giridhar Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Jiu Ki Shri Radha Madhava Jiu Ki Jai Nitilila Pravishto Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatarasata Shri Shila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatarasata Shri Shila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj Ki Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatarasata Shri Shila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj Ki Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatarasata Shri Shila Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Goswami Maharaj Ki Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatarasata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Maha Bhagavat Srila Gaurkishora Das Goswami Maharaj Ki Shri Srila Sachid Ananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Vaishnava Sarvabhaum Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Shri Gauri Vedanta Charya Baladev Jagoswami Prabhu Ki Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Shri Narottam Srinivas Ramananda Prabhu Trai Ki Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Sada Goswami Prabhu Ki Srila Swarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Gaura Parshad Vrinda Ki Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sigo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Navadvip Dham Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Dvara Shivanatmaka Shri Braj Mandala Dham Ki Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Shri Shri Radha Govinda Radha Gopinath Radha Madan Mohan Jiu Ki Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Radha Shyama Sundar Radha Raman Radha Damodar Jiu Ki Srimati Lalita Vishaka Adi Ashta Sakhi Vrinda Ki Shri Rupa Manjari Rati Manjari Ananga Manjari Adi Manjari Vrinda Ki Shrimati Brinda Devi Ki Shrimati Purnamasi Yoga Maya Devi Ki Shri Gopi Shwar Mahadeva Ki Sarva Bhishta Pradata Giriraj Govardhana Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiu Ki Bhakti Vigna Vinashana Shri Nrsinga Dev Ki Bhakta Pravara Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Shri Jagannath Puri Purushottam Kshetra Dham Ki Charodam Charo Sampradaya Charo Acharya Ki Shri Rāmānujācārya Tirobhav Mahamahotsav Titi Ki Shri Madhvācārya Tirobhav Mahamahotsav Titi Ki Shri Vishva Vaishnava Raj Sabha Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Tribhuvana Pavana Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai Tribhuvana Mangala Harinama Prabhu Ki Hare Krishna Maha Mantra Ki Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai Shri Nityananda Mahajana Ki Jai Shri Pancha Tattva Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo mahabhajanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namne gauratishe namah. Nityanandam namastubhyam Premananda pradayane Kalo kalamashanashaya Janavapataye namah. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Jayatam Suruto Pangor Mama Mandamater Gati Matsarvasva Padam Bojo Radha Madanam Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Shrimad Ratnagar Sinhasanasto Shrimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prishtalabhi Sevyamano Smarami Shivanurasarasarampi Vamshi Vata Tatakstitaha Karshanavenu Swanair Gopir Gopinata Shriyestanaha Bhaktya Vihina Aparadha Lakshay Kshiptascha Kamadi Taranga Madhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapannam Grinde Namaste Charanarvindam. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Sabsavai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa, Ashtatarasata Sri Srila, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta, Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Ashtatarasata Sri Srila, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtatara Sata Shri Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Goswami. I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of all of my Shri Shri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, to our to our Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. On this day, I'm offering my obeisances unto Srila Madhvācārya, the founder of this disciplic succession that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced. It is his disappearance day. And also, today is the disappearance day of Sri Rāmānujācārya, other major Acharya, who was actually an incarnation of Lakshmana. And Madhvācārya is an incarnation of Bhimsen, one of the Pandavas, and also Hanuman, Madhvācārya. So we are in the line of Hanuman, very great line to be in, because Hanuman is always victorious. So I'm going to speak only a few minutes about these two great acharyas, so that we do not neglect, that we are not ignoring them. We must honor them, and we must offer our obeisances to them on their appearance days, especially, and on their disappearance days. We offer our obeisances every day to them, but especially on these days, Avirbhav, Tirubhav, it is essential to speak something about their personality and their mahima, their glories. So, I'm only going to say a couple of things. Srila Bhaktivedanta Bharati Maharaj, he had a very nice, on my Gmail, I receive their mailings every time that there's a special holy day. And I like his presentations. So, who is Madhvācārya? I just told. That is his identity. But he appeared in South India. And from his very childhood, he was quite extraordinary. And being an incarnation of Bhima and Hanuman, he was very powerful, physically. He was also spiritually extremely powerful. But even in his childhood, he was very, very strong. And one time, there was a demon, I forget the demon's name offhand, who was in that area where he lived. And it was in the form of a snake. And as a young boy, he put his big toe on the snake and pushed down. And the snake was killed. One time, the father of Madhvācārya, some monetary debt had been incurred to the father's brother. And the brother, the uncle came there and said, he was upset, he was very upset, and he said, you have to pay this debt. So, he did not have money to pay the debt. So, Madhvācārya, he took some, I think it was conch shells, something. I have to look it up actually. He took some what? Tamarind seeds, that's exactly, okay, yes. And he turned them into coins, gold and silver coins, and he presented it to his uncle. Here, you should take how much is owed to you. Like this. Later on in Madhvācārya's life, there's also an incident. I remember we were hearing these glories in front of our Gurudev, Srila Narayan Maharaj, one time when it was the appearance day or disappearance day of Madhvācārya. And there was an incident where Madhvācārya challenged the most powerful wrestler in the kingdom to a match of strength. So then Madhvācārya put down his big toe and he said to the other wrestler, "Now you lift my toe." Could not do. He tried and tried. Could not budge his toe one single hair. And there's another incident where there was a number of wrestlers. And that's a big sport in India, in Vedic culture, wrestling. Even Prabhupada said it's a Vaishnava sport. Swimming, wrestling, and walking. He gave those three for physical. Probably we could add riding a bicycle also. So anyway, there were a number of wrestlers. Something like 4 or 5 wrestlers. And Madhvācārya challenged them. Choke my neck with all of your strength. So multiple wrestlers were choking his neck. He said, I will chant Harinam continually, non-stop. You try to stop me by choking my neck. They tried and tried and tried, and he just chanted. When we told this pastime, Gurudev laughed. He liked it so much. But Madhvācārya was an extremely powerful spiritual personality. We go to see his deity and his mutt in South India from time to time. We've been there. In Udupi, right near the ocean. 11 kilometers from the ocean. Small towns. Not a big city, but not a small. In that city is where Madhvācārya, 800 years ago, Madhvācārya founded his temple there. So what about the deity in the temple? Do you know what deity he has in the temple? What deity? If you know, you tell. Yeah? What is he holding? For what? What's the stick for?
Burning the cows.
Huh?
Burning the cows?
No.
No.
It's a butter churning rod.
Okay.
Yes, you didn't know fully. So, yes. So how did that deity come? Do you know where that deity originated? That Krishna deity. He's not so big. I don't know with my arms if I can exactly, but he's not so big. But he's not small also. So that deity, do you know how that deity appeared? Anyone?
Inside some tilak.
How the deity originally came. Originally. Whose deity was, who worshipped that deity? You know?
But he got it from a merchant and it was in Tila. But okay.
I said, who worshipped that deity? The captain of the ship was not worshipping. Captain didn't even know that it was there.
Yeah, I know.
Where does the deity come from? You don't know the history? It is from Dwarka. That deity was worshipped by Rukmini Devi herself. It is more than 5,000 years old. Why is that deity of Bal Gopal there in Dwarka? Here's the story. One time, Devaki, the mother of Krishna, was lamenting. I did not see your childhood pastimes, your beautiful, sweet childhood pastimes. I could never see them, and she was weeping and weeping. So Krishna in Dwarka said, that is all right, mother, I will show them to you. And then he immediately became a small boy, small little Krishna, and he jumped into her lap, and he was pulling on her hair, and doing so many things, and everyone, all the queens of Dwarka were also watching this. And they were completely melting in praying. Melting. And then again, Krishna came to his normal, mature form. And when Rukmini saw, she said, I have to get a deity who looks exactly like you, how you showed this form. So that deity was carved, I think, by Vishwakarma, one of those personalities, carved that deity. And so the story is that, like more than 4,000 years later, that deity somehow or other was covered in what? Gopi Chandan Tilak, which comes from where? It comes from Dwarka. And they had huge boulders. Even in Vrindavan now you can see. In Vrindavan you can see that in the shops they buy big rocks. But one time a ship was coming on the coastline, because this is the coastline there in Udupi. The ship was a sailing ship, of course. And somehow or other the ship got stuck on a sand dune underneath the water. It got stuck and it couldn't be moved. So that was a very frightening situation, because sometimes the ship can turn over and everyone can drown and die. So from a distance, everyone from a distance on that ship, they were calling out to anyone on the shore for help. So Madhvācārya was there, on the shore, on the shoreline, he was there. And so Madhvācārya, he took his cloth and he began waving it in a certain particular way. And who is Madhvācārya? He's Bhimsen. Who is Bhimsen the son of? Who's the father of Bhimsen? Vayu, the god of the wind. So, and also, the god of the wind is also the father of who? Hanuman. Okay? So the god, the wind god is very, very powerful. And Madhvācārya, he had those powers. So just by moving his cloth like this, and wind came and like that, and then the ship became freed up. And then the ship came closer, and in a small boats, they came to the shore. And then the captain, he fell at the feet of Madhvācārya. Thank you. You have saved our lives. You have saved everything. We want to give you. You come onto our ship. We are carrying so many goods, so many varieties. You take whatever you want. So Madhvācārya came onto the ship. And he looked at things, and then he saw that there was these big, huge boulders of Gopi Chandan, Tilak. And he said, oh, this is very good for myself and my disciples. We use this all the time. So then he said, I will take these 2 boulders. So the man, it took more than one person to lift those boulders, and they carried the boulders off the ship and put it on the sand. And then Madhvācārya lifted up one boulder, put it on his shoulder, and he began to carry the boulder towards the Udupi. As he was carrying the boulder, it cracked in half, and Bal Gopal came out. And when Madhvācārya saw, he became so ecstatic. And he carried that deity with him to Udupi, and as he carried him along the way, he began to recite, composing spontaneously beautiful prayers and so forth to Bal Gopal. So that deity is installed there. He installed that deity, and also Madhvācārya made that his headquarters of his whole preaching mission. And he made a small temple, not big, huge, not like the other temples in South India. He did not want to compete against those temples. He wanted those temples to be preserved as the grand, how glorious and how beautiful architecture. So he just made a small temple. And that deity has been installed there for the last 800 years. Yes. Madhvācārya also, he initiated 8 sannyasis. And he established 8 mats. Now when you go there, you'll see there's a big, inner area surrounding the temple, which you can walk around, and cars also drive there. And there's many shops. But on the outskirts of that circle, there are 8 different big, huge houses. And they are each one of the mats. And the sannyasi, who is the descendant in the line of the original 8 sannyasis, that sannyasi is in charge of that mat. And what happens is, that deity, the Bal Gopal deity, the mat has their own deities also. They have their own deities. But that Bal Gopal deity is worshipped by each one of these mats on a rotational basis. I think it's a rotation of like 2 or 2.5 years. One mutt does it, the worship and the sannyasi, and they also bring their deities into the temple room of that deity. The only way you can see that deity is you have to look through a window. You know? It's a window about this big, not very big. And you have to stand in line, and then you can look at the deity. And they don't like you to stand there very long. But there are times when there's not many people, then you can stand and you can look. And you know they never close that window and that deity. They never close. It's open 24 hours. That's a special thing about that deity. Yes. What else? So Madhvācārya, such an amazing, powerful Acharya, Vaishnava Acharya. And why did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accept the line of Madhvācārya? He could have accepted Rāmānujācārya line, he could have accepted. Why? Because first of all, Krishna is the worshipable deity. In the other, some Lakshmi Narayan, Sitaram, like this. But in this sampradaya, is Krishna, and especially Bal Gopal, Krishna in Vrindavan. So, what line is this? First of all, Lord Brahma. And Brahma received from who? Chaturmukh, Brahma, 4 heads. He received initiation from who? Who initiated Lord Brahma? Yes, Krishna. Krishna hoite chaturmukha. You know? So, whenever I see in our samadhi the deities at the end of the last one of the dioramas, there you have Lord Brahma and you have Vyasadeva. But whenever I see that deity, I say, Brahma, Narada, Vyas, Madhvācārya ki jai. I always say that. So how did Madhvācārya become a disciple of Vyasadeva? Vyasadeva was 5,000 years ago. And Madhvācārya also wrote commentaries, especially on Vedanta Sutra. Yes, Madhvācārya. And also commented on Srimad Bhagavatam. And also Bhagavad Gita. He wrote a commentary on Bhagavad Gita. Madhvācārya. So how did Madhvācārya become a disciple of Vyasadeva? Did he meet Vyasadeva? Vyasadeva was from 5,000 years ago. Did he have a time machine that he could travel back in time? No. Vyasadeva right now is still there. In the Himalayan mountains, Vyasadeva is there in his ashram, but we cannot see him. Why? Because we're not qualified. Not qualified. But Madhvācārya decided that he wanted to meet Vyasadeva personally in the Himalayan mountains. So there's a whole description of how he went. Do you know that they have to climb and climb and climb and climb and climb to go there? Yes. and very dangerous, very dangerous. So there was one or two disciples that were traveling with Madhvācārya, and Madhvācārya was going very quickly. Why? Because he's Hanuman. So he was jumping and jumping and jumping. And these other disciples, they were left behind. So Madhvācārya went on, and he came to Badrik Ashram in the Himalayan mountains. And then Vyasadeva was waiting for him. And Vyasadeva gave him Diksha. He received directly from Vyas. And then he also recited his commentary on Bhagavad Gita to Vyasadeva. Yes, that's our disciplic succession. We should know how great and glorious are these personalities. Otherwise, it's only names to us. All names. No, these are divine, powerful personalities. And if you even think about them, and if you even chant their name, that's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote the Guru Parampara song that we sing in the mornings, Krishna Vaite Chatur. Yes. Because it is very powerful to say the names of each one of the acharyas in our disciplic life. So like that, coming down in our line from Madhvācārya to who? After many, many different disciplic succession of Madhvācārya, then it comes to who? Madhavendra Puripad, most exalted Mahabhagavad, Rasik Vaishnava, who was the seed of all the moods that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be tasting. Madhavendra Puri. And that's why Advaitacharya took initiation from him. That's why Nityananda Prabhu associated with him in a very friendly mood. You can read in Chaitanya Bhagavat. They both became completely overwhelmed in ecstasy of praying. They embraced each other and they talked with each other. It doesn't say that he took initiation from Nityananda Prabhu, but Advaitacharya directly took initiation. I told the other day that's why Mahaprabhu was always very respectful toward Advaitacharya, which he didn't like. He didn't like that, but because he's disciple directly of Madhvācārya. So in this way, we are in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. Say that. Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. Again. Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. That's our line. All the other three lines are also extremely glorious and exalted and pure. Because in the Shastras it says, there's one shloka that is telling, in the Kali Yuga, there are 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas only. There are 4 authorized Vaishnava Sampradayas. Where do these Vaishnava Sampradayas come from? Brahma? Who? Who else? Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Lakshmi, and the 4 Kumaras. So therefore, those divine, universal, eternal personalities, they have authorized their acharya in the Kali Yuga, as Rāmānujācārya, Madhvācārya, Vishnu Swami, and Navadvip. So this verse is telling that unless someone takes initiation in one of these authorized 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas, then the mantra that they're receiving is useless. Yeah. So our Srila Prabhupada, who came and inaugurated the Hare Krishna movements all throughout the world, he was coming in this disciplic succession, and his mantra was full of this supreme power. So therefore this movement has come to how it has grown like this. And who is before him? Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, so many exalted personnel, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, and whole disciplic lines. So we should be very proud. Yes, We should be very proud that our gurus are so exalted and glorious, even though we are very, very useless and fallen, but they are very glorious. So you should be very proud of them, that we come in this life, and therefore we should behave ourselves properly by following Upadeshamrita. We should behave. We should learn how to live, how to behave, how to conduct our life, and not be a disgrace to our gurus. Yeah. Not disgrace our gurus. This has to be the pride of the disciple. It is told by Srila Prabhupada, the pride of a disciple is the instructions of his spiritual master. That is the pride of a disciple. Guru has given this instruction. I follow this. That is the pride of the disciple. So, Madhvācārya, he is the one Acharya. Yesterday was his disappearance day, and today is Rāmānujācārya. So Rāmānujācārya, who is Rāmānujācārya? Rāmānujācārya is Lakshmana. He's an incarnation of Lakshmana. There's very exciting stories about Rāmānujācārya's life. I think what I'll do is, so I can get the names correctly. He also is born in South India. All the four Vaishnava Acharyas appeared in South India. Okay. So Rāmānujācārya, he was born more than 1,000 years ago, in 1017 AD. And his Tithi is on the 12th day, but that's his birth Tithi. So, his father was named Asuri Sarva Kritu Keshava Deshika. His mother was named Kantimati Devi. His father was very expert in performing yajna. So many yajnas. And there was a temple in Chennai called the Parthasarathi Temple. Rāmanuja was born because his father performed a very important yajna there with the desire to have a son. So therefore, his son was born, Rāmanuja. And he was actually born on the same Tithi as Lord Lakshmana. But we don't have that on our Vaishnava calendar, the appearance day of Lakshmana. I have not seen it. So therefore he was named Lakshman Deshika. And later he received the name Rāmanuja. So in Tamil Nadu he was born. And it was a place called Sri Perambudur. It was very near to this town called Kanchipuram. And Kanchipuram is a very important place that very great Vaishnava personalities worshipped in that temple. Now, when Rāmanuja was just a small boy, his father left this world. And then Rāmanuja was married off at a very early age. And his mother sent him to study under the teacher Yadava Prakash. But Yadava Prakash was what? He was a Advaitavadi, he was a Mayavadi. But his mother sent him to study under him, Sanskrit and so forth. So, and therefore Rāmanuja would always disagree with his teacher. So once while Rāmanuja was giving an oil massage to Yadava Prakash, he began explaining the meaning. There was a particular verse that Yadava Prakash, he began to tell the meaning of this passage, which is from the Chandogya Upanishad. Tasya yata kapasyam pundarikam eva akshani. So now, here, Yadava Prakash, there's a word called kapiyasam. Kapiyasam. Now, what did he indicate by this? He was explaining the meaning of each word in the verse. He says, kapiyasam means that the lotus eyes of the Lord that are reddish, somewhat reddish, they are red just like what? Kapiyasam, the bottom of a monkey. Can you imagine? This is Mayavadi. As soon as Rāmānuja heard this explanation by him, tears began to fall. And he was massaging the body of Yadava Prakash, and they fell on his body. And Yadava Prakash, he inquired, Lakshman, did you receive some inauspicious news from your home? What is the reason that you are crying? And then Rāmānuja said, your blasphemous interpretation is the cause that I am weeping. Yadava Prakash asked, what was so vulgar about my interpretation? Then Rāmānuja Prana, he said, the interpretation of the word kapiyasam, it could also mean kam pibati iti kapi, which refers to the sun, not to the bottom of a monkey, because the sun evaporates moisture. And when the sun is rising, it is crimson red color, just like the lotus eyes of the Lord. Now, when Yadava Prakash heard this interpretation, he said, yes, your meaning is correct, but mine is also correct. I refer to the direct, literal meaning of the term, while you refer to it as metaphoric, symbolic. It's called the lakshan. One is called abhida, means the direct meaning of the words, and the other is called lakshana, it means symbolic. So now, Yadava Prakash, he did not take the situation very seriously, outwardly, but inwardly he thought, oh, this boy, he is very intelligent. In the future, he will challenge my interpretations. Now, he became very suspicious of Rāmānuja, and he decided, okay, we will end his life. Then, Yadava Prakash and his own son, they decided, okay, here's how we'll do it. Then a few days later, Yadava Prakash told to his disciples that we will go to Kashi. We will make a journey to Kashi. It will take 3 months for this whole journey. And when we are in Kashi, we will study the Vedanta. So, anyone who wants to come on this 3-month journey, we shall return after 3 months. You should now prepare yourself if you want to come on this journey. Then Rāmānuja asked for his mother's opinion, and she said, there is no need to go. But his aunt, Diptimati Devi, approached his mother and she said, dear sister, you have to tolerate some separation from your son for the sake of his progress. I am also sending my son, Govinda, to Kashi. So that means his cousin. Govinda is the cousin of Rāmānuja. Then Kantimati gave her consent, the mother of Rāmānuja. And, yes, then Rāmānuja and Govinda, along with all the other students, they began to make the journey to Kashi. And along the way, they reached a Vrindachala forest, it's called, which is very dense and very beautiful. And they camped for the night near a freshwater place. And then Rāmānuja woke up early the following morning, and he went for his bath. And when he returned, and Govinda told him, he says, you know, today is supposed to be the last day of your life, because there is a conspiracy to kill you, and they have this whole plan how they're going to kill you. So if you desire to live longer, you must escape. Rāmānuja grabbed his wet clothes. Immediately he fled from that place. But what did he encounter? Unending, very dense forest in every direction that he walked. And now the sun was about to set. Now he was also very, very thirsty. So Rāmānuja thought, now there is no way of escaping, and soon the wild beasts, they'll eat me, they'll devour me. Just then he noticed a hunter in the forest, and the hunter's wife. They were seated underneath a tree. And he approached them and he asked, where are you going? And they replied, we're going to Kanchipuram. Then Rāmānuja pleaded to accompany them, and they agreed. And that hunter's wife realized that Rāmānuja was thirsty. And then she requested her husband to give him some water to drink. Now this is a complicated thing. Why? Because Rāmānuja is born in a Brahmin family. And these hunters are hunters. They're low. So that's why the wife had to say, he's very thirsty. Should I give him some water? Because Brahmanas cannot accept from persons in lower class. So then the hunter asked him, will you drink water? Now Rāmānuja thought, how can I drink his water? I am a Brahmana, and this person is a hunter. So therefore I should not accept water from him. But then he remembered a particular situation. Once there was a person from a higher caste, Brahmin, and that person had accepted boiled urd dal from a mahot. It doesn't say what a mahot is, but probably less than a sudra. Understand? So that person had boiled urd dal. And this person from a higher position, he accepted that from that person. But later, after he had accepted that dal, then that same mohot, he cleansed his drinking container and he offered him water. And he thought, I cannot accept water from you. Now the simple-hearted mahot, he was bewildered. And he said, even the urd dal was cooked with the same water. And then he replied, true. However, I accepted your offering only to save my life. Therefore, now that my life has been saved, I no longer need any water. So now Rāmānuja thought, I will die if I don't get water. So then Rāmānuja accepted a palm full of water 3 times from that hunter. Then after drinking it, he felt drowsy, he felt sleepy. Why did he feel sleepy after drinking that? Why do you think?
He was covered by Yoga Maya
Now, who was that hunter and who was Lakshmi? The hunter and the hunter's wife were actually Lakshmi Narayan, who came in that form to save his life. So, because it was a special arrangement for Rāmānuja, so when he drank the water that was given, he felt drowsy and he fell asleep. He awoke the next morning and he saw a gigantic banyan tree. It was beside a very large well where the water is, you have to go down the steps like that. And even the people swim in that large well. Then Rāmānuja began to wonder, where am I? He was in the middle of the forest. Then he inquired from the people who were there, where is this location? And they said, this is a forest. And then he asked, is there any settlement nearby? And then they said, yes, Kanchipuram is nearby. So he headed for Kanchipuram, and upon arriving there, he took his bath in the Vaikuntha Sarovara lake. And after bathing, while meditating on his worshipful Lord, Sri Lakshmi Narayan, he realized that the hunter and his wife were none other than them. That's how his life was saved. Otherwise, his guru was going to kill him. So later, then he went to Sri Perambudur. When he reached his residence there, his aunt, who was also present, asked him, the study time was supposed to be 3 months, so what made you return so quickly before everyone else? And then Rāmānuja explained everything to them about the conspiracy and the plot against him. And he requested that they keep their mouth shut. Don't talk about this. When Yadava Prakash, the guru, returned, he found Rāmānuja at home. Now, his plot to kill Rāmānuja, he thought, was not known by him, by Rāmānuja. So very confidently, he sent a messenger requesting Rāmānuja to resume his studies, to again become his disciple. So this time, Yadava Prakash was giving his interpretation. He was speaking his interpretation on the Mahakavya of the Upanishad. What is that? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Everything is Brahma. There is nothing other than Brahma. Jiva is also Brahma. So now this trend continued that Rāmānuja again challenged Yadava Prakash's statement. And he said, Satyam, Jnanam, and Anantam are adjectives that are attributed to the Lord. The Lord is endowed with the quality of supreme truth, Satyam, supreme intelligence, Jnanam, and infinitude, Ananta. So now Yadava Prakash understood how severe of a threat Rāmānuja posed to his reputation, and he returned to the idea of again trying to kill him. Now, at that same time, there was a king who was in the king of the Chola dynasty, and he sent a palanquin for Yadava Prakash, and he wanted him to come because his daughter was possessed by a ghost. So he wanted him to come and exorcise that ghost, Yadava Prakash. So Yadava Prakash requested Rāmānuja to also accompany him. And then as an excuse to flaunt his reputation as an accomplished tantric. Because tantra means all this witchcraft and all this black arts. So once, when they arrived at the palace, then Yadava Prakash began by chanting the mantras. But the ghost within the princess, she laughed and she ridiculed him. The ghost that was inside of the princess. Yes? Only that ghost was laughing at him and told him, your efforts to get me out will be futile. Don't waste your time here. Now, Yadava Prakash shouted, how dare you, to the ghost. Then the ghost, who was in the possession of the princess, he demanded, I will leave immediately only if your disciple, Rāmānuja, keeps both his feet on my head. Now Yadava Prakash, there was no other alternative. So he requested Rāmānuja to honor the ghost's demand. And as soon as Rāmānuja placed his feet on her head, princess' head, the princess fell unconscious and the ghost left her. So after this incident, Yadava Prakash's envy toward Rāmānuja increased even more. Now, he thought to himself, this way I'll never become famous. Instead, I will only invite infamy. That girl got delivered merely by the touch of Rāmānuja's feet on her head, but I could not deliver her even by chanting powerful mantras. So as a result of his growing hatred, that Yadava Prakash demanded that Rāmānuja should leave his company. He rejected Rāmānuja. So then after parting ways with Yadava Prakash, Rāmānuja met Kanchi Purna. This name, Kanchi Purna. He was a disciple of the great Acharya, Yamuna-Acārya. And Rāmānuja had not met Yamuna-Acārya, but he knew who he was. He was quite some distance away, Yamuna-Acārya. So Rāmānuja had not met him. But this disciple, Kanchi Purna, he used to call Rāmānuja as Acharya. He said, "Oh, Acharya." Why? Because by birth, by consideration of birth, Rāmānuja was born in Brahmin family, and he himself, this Kanchi Purna, he was born in a very low caste. So Rāmānuja used to daily visit this temple, very famous temple, Varada Raj temple in Kanchipuram. So there he discovered Kanchi Purna. So his name is Kanchi Purna, and he's in Kanchipuram. Okay? So there he discovered Kanchi Purna reading the Alabandharu Stotra every day. This is a prayer. Alabandharu Stotra is a very long prayer written by who? Yamuna-Acārya. And so every day Kanchi Purna was sitting in the temple, he's reading this stotra. So one day, Rāmānuja invited Kanchi Purna to his home to take food. Now, when Vaishnavas invite other Vaishnavas to come to their home, they do not say, "Please come and take prasad." Yeah, this is a very interesting point. In previous times, they would never say to Vaishnavas, "Come to my home, please come and take prasad." What would they say? The reason why they would not say that, they would say instead, "Please come and give prasad." Please come and give prasad. You understand? Generally, we also say, "Come, take prasad." But in that culture of that time, they would say, "Please come and give prasad." Why? Because by their coming into the home and the remnants of their prasad, this is what they wanted. You see. So, only when any Vaishnava guest comes and accepts the food will it become prasad. Then it becomes prasad. So Rāmānuja requested Kanchi Purna to come and give prasad to him. Now Kanchi Purna was on his way to honor the invitation when Rāmānuja left his house to receive Kanchi Purna. However, since Kanchi Purna had taken another route, they did not meet. And once Kanchi Purna arrived at Rāmānuja's residence, he explained to Rāmānuja's wife, and now this comes the whole thing about Rāmānuja's wife. Wait till you hear these stories. So, this Kanchi Purna, who was from low class, explained to Rāmānuja's wife that the Acharya, which Acharya? Rāmānuja, had invited him. But he was also in a hurry. He was pressed for time. He didn't have so much time. Because he had to return back to the temple of Varadraj and continue his reciting of the prayers. So therefore he requested, "If the prasad is ready now, please allow me to honor it." So even though Rāmānuja was not there, But the Kanchipurna said to his wife, "Give to me now, I will honor, because I'm in a hurry." So his wife offered Kanchipurna the prasad on a leaf plate. And after he took, she immediately discarded his plate and carefully purified the house by smearing cow dung, thinking that a person belonging to a lower caste partook food in a Brahmin's house. Did you catch all that?
Yes, but I need to set it.
Yeah. You tell what I said. Okay. So his wife, she was thinking, oh, a very low-class person has come to our house. And he's even eaten here. Oh, let me take this leaf plate, throw it, and then put on and purify the house. So then, his wife, after she did that, then she took bath to purify herself. And then in her wet clothes, she again began cooking. Now she threw away all the leftovers, considering them to be remnants of a Sudra. What?
Transmitter not working.
Oh. Okay, so it will not work?
In YouTube works, they can listen from the internet.
They can listen to what?
From YouTube.
Yeah.
They can listen from YouTube also. They can connect.
So okay. How are they going to listen?
Just open YouTube.
Do they know to do that?
Yeah, the link in the group, in your group, is the link to YouTube channel.
So they have to use their own phone.
But they're using the phone, so...
Нужно включить очень YouTube, через YouTube. У нас тут чуть-чуть осталось, я могу сесть к ним и чуть-чуть попереводить.
What?
Я могу... Ой, I can see to someone.
Okay. Well, why don't you just translate like we always did before?
A little bit here, loud.
By just speaking out loud so everyone can hear. You know, like that, because there's no other alternative right now.
I can sit nearby and
Yeah. Okay. So did you tell? You tell. Oh, you tell. So the wife of Rāmānuja, she threw away everything that was even cooked. So she had to cook again. And she took bath and her clothing was wet, and then now she began to cook. She thought, oh, those are remnants of a Shudra. And she washed each one of the pots and everything. Can you imagine? So when Rāmānuja arrived, he asked her, I have invited Kanchipurna, and still you have not cooked? Because she's found that he's cooking again. She's cooking again. So his wife replied, he already came. Yes, he already came, and he honored prasad, and then he left. Then Rāmānuja became very disappointed with his wife. He was thinking, I wanted to take his Mahaprasad remnants, but my wife has thrown away the leaf plate, and now she has cleansed the whole place with cow dung. So on another occasion, one sadhu who was setting out for a distant journey, then he was about 3 kosas, that means about 2.5 miles away. And he was going into a desolate area with no other villages, so that person heard, that sadhu, he heard the glories of Rāmānuja's Atiti Seva. Atiti Seva means an uninvited guest, service to an uninvited guest. This is the Vedic principle, Atiti Bhagavan, that God has come in the form of this uninvited guest. Atiti means uninvited. So, this sadhu, he heard about how Rāmānuja always entertains these guests. So, he decided to pay a visit to the home of Rāmānuja. Rāmānuja's wife, however, dismissed that sadhu and refused to feed him. Then after leaving Rāmānuja's home, he met Rāmānuja on the pathway. And then Rāmānuja inquired for him, where was he going? Going very quickly, very heated. And then that sadhu said, I had heard Acharya's name, and thus I inquired from the locals, and I went to his house, but he was not present, and his wife would not provide anything. Now Rāmānuja was extremely distressed to hear this. And thus he wrote a letter to his wife, posing as her father. You know about this letter? You ever heard this story? Huh? You heard? He wrote a letter as if it was a letter from his wife's father. So, and he informed her, as the father, come to your home immediately, because your younger sister is getting married, and her mother could not make all the arrangements by herself. Please inform Acharya and come home quickly. So Rāmānuja wrote that letter as if it was coming from her father. And then what did he do? That same sadhu who was dismissed by the wife, he gave that letter to her. He said, now you go to my home again and show her this letter. So then, this time, when his wife realized that this was a messenger sent by her father, she treated him with great respect. She fed him and showed him great hospitality. And later, she presented the same letter to Rāmānuja. And then Rāmānuja organized a big, huge trunk. And he filled her trunk, that trunk, with all her jewels and all of her clothes. Then he sent 2 men and 1 woman to accompany his wife to her father's place. Now you know, his wife did not even read the letter. Just by hearing that this person had come carrying some message from her father, she treated him so affectionately. Now Rāmānuja read her the letter aloud, which he himself had secretly written. And when she inquired why so many clothes were being packed in this big trunk, then Rāmānuja told, why should you waste time washing clothes while you are there? You can bring the used clothes back here for the servants to wash. And then, when she asked, well, why so many jewels were needed? Then Rāmānuja told her, if you take only the jewels I gave you, people will suspect that I have sold the jewels that your father offered to you. And if you were to take only those jewels given by your father, then people would presume that your in-laws did not give you any jewels. So take them all and you go. Now the person who brought the letter, he accompanied her, and once they arrived near her father's home, then that sadhu took his permission to leave, and he went. Now as soon as his wife departed for her parents' home, what did Rāmānuja do? As soon as the wife was gone to go to her father's, with the trunk of all of her clothes and all of her jewelry, what did Rāmānuja do? He left the house. Finished. and never came back. So he abandoned his house. So our Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, so many teachings he received through Rāmānujācārya's line. So many. And although Rāmānujācārya was born in a Brahmin family, but he had so much respect for Vaishnavas. He always accepted the Vaishnavas as worshipable beyond their caste, their bodily designations, like that. They're Vaishnavas. So this is one of the most important teachings in the Rāmānuja line, service to the Vaishnavas. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, very strictly he received that. Now after leaving home, the Rāmānuja accepted Diksha from Gosti Purna, who was one of the 4 main disciples, sannyasi disciples of Yamunacārya. And then he inquired from Gosti Purna, who composed this great Alabandharu Stotra? And then he answered, Yamunacārya himself. He has composed this. So there were 4 prominent disciples: Shaila Purna, Gosti Purna, Mahapurna, and Kanchi Purna. These are the 4 main disciples of Yamunacārya. And Shaila Purna, who he took initiation from, was actually Rāmānuja's uncle. So by the time that they went together on journey to Sri Ranga Kshetra, Sri Ranga, most famous place in all of South India, huge temple. I went there one time. I have a whole long story to tell how what I went through to get the darshan of that deity. Amazing story. Now, by the time they reached, that means Rāmānuja and his uncle, Gosti Purna, before they reached Sri Ranga Kshetra, Yamunacārya had already left his body. And they noticed, when they came and saw the body of Yamunacārya, 3 of his fingers, he was lying there, and 3 of his fingers were folded. 1 finger was up, and the other 3 fingers were folded. Nobody could understand why his 3 fingers are folded. Then Rāmānuja inquired. He inquired from all the disciples and everyone, were those 3 fingers in that position previously? And they told him no. Rāmānuja immediately understood that some desire of this great personality was not yet fulfilled. So right there, on the spot, he took 3 vows. He said, number 1, I will write a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, which will later be known as the Sri Bhashya commentary. Number 2, each time that he said the vow, 1 finger came up. Second one, I will deliver the fallen souls by giving them Harinam. 2nd finger came up. Third, I will preach all over India and I will establish the Bhakti Shastra. 3rd finger came up. And as he took each of these 3 vows, in sequence, the 3 fingers unfolded. Then all the people there, they proposed to him, you have come so far. You should take darshan of Sri Ranganath, the deity there. Rāmānuja replied, no, I will not see that cruel Lord. That Lord is cruel, I'm not going to go and see him. He did not allow me to have darshan of my Guru. Nothing can happen without his wish, so I will not see him either. And then afterwards, he accepted sannyas in front of Yāmunācārya's portrait, picture. So for this reason, people consider him the disciple of Yāmunācārya, because why? Nam, Vigraha, and Swarup are one and the same. What does that mean? That means, for such exalted personality, like the gurus in our line, their name, or their deity, like we have deity of Gurudev here, or it can also mean a picture, a photo, and their own body, their swarup, they're all identical in these great personalities. So everybody accepted that Rāmānuja is actually the disciple of Yāmunācārya because of those 3 vows and the changing of his fingers, and also because he took from a portrait of Yāmunācārya. You cannot imitate. No one can imitate this. But he's such powerful personality. Then, it was at that time that he received the name Rāmānuja. Do you know the meaning of the name Rāmānuja? You don't know.
Brother of Ram.
Huh?
Brother of Ram. Younger.
Brother? Yes, younger. Anuja means the younger brother of Ram. Yes. So, Yāmunācārya had left his body before Rāmānuja could meet him in person. But still, in spite of this, Rāmānuja understood his guru's instruction. What lesson do we learn from this? That Guru reveals himself to a person who is surrendered. That's how someone can actually meet Sri Guru, by surrender. So, one time, Rāmānuja was in Jagannath Puri. But he found that some of the sevaks of Lord Jagannath did some wrong. So what happened? That night, Lord Jagannath transported him to Kurmakshetra, hundreds of miles away, in a palanquin. He woke up the next morning in Kurmakshetra. He was kicked out by Lord Jagannath because he found fault in the servants of Lord Jagannath. We also heard the other day about how Pundarik Vidyanidhi was also finding some fault, and how the cloth that was given to Jagannath had too much starch in it, so he didn't like that. And then that night in his dream, Baladev and Jagannath came and slapped his cheeks until they became red. Then he understood, oh, I've committed offense. Yes. So there was no Vishnu deity there at Kurmakshetra when he arrived there. So he thought, how? I cannot accept prasad unless that I'm taking the darshan of Lord Vishnu. So you know what happened? At that time, Kurma, you know who Kurma is? Who is Kurma? Kurma. What form? Yes, Chiripaha, Kurma. Chiripaha. Yes, Kurma. So Kurma, the deity, was completely covered with sandalwood paste. So no one could understand exactly that deity. Because in South India, this is the rule, that the deity is covered with sandalwood paste. So many people thought that this deity is a Shiva Linga. But finally, the Lord himself revealed to Rāmānuja, I am not Shiva Linga, I am Kurma. Then Rāmānuja happily worshipped the Lord, then he honored Prasad. Yes. Good stories, good histories. Yes. You see, it becomes very enlivening to us. Otherwise, it's only a name on the calendar. We have to hear about these great personalities. And there's so much more, so much more. Yes. One main thing has to be mentioned, that there's a famous disciple of Rāmānujācārya. You know what his name is? He's very, very famous. Very famous. His name is Quresh. Yes. And he's the ideal example of an absolutely surrendered disciple. So, Rāmānuja, in the course of his preaching as an acharya, he was attracting many disciples. And he was giving diksha to hundreds of disciples. So at that time, when Rāmānuja was doing that, generally only brahmanas were accepting disciples. But Rāmānuja only Brahmins were accepted as disciples. But Rāmānuja, he initiated all, regardless of their caste. And then Rāmānuja he taught this lesson. It is better to be consumed by a tiger, to be eaten by a tiger, than to visit a temple of Lord Shiva. Now, at that time, people would worship Lord Shiva. They would consider him to be who? They would consider him to be the supreme, even higher than Vishnu or Narayan. But Rāmānuja rejected that. That's actually a very heavy namaparad, to consider Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, or any of the demigods to be on the same level as Bhagavan. So, but do we, Vaishnavas, do we worship Lord Shiva? Do we respect Lord Shiva? Absolutely. We worship him as who? Vaishnavanam yata shambhu. He is the greatest of the Vaishnavas. That's how we worship Lord Shiva. Just like we have this Shiva Lingam here at Paramatal, the temple there. We worship Lord Shiva. In Vrindavan, Gopishwar Mahadev, we worship Lord Shiva. In Mayapur, next to the birthplace, Shiva Lingam, we worship Lord Shiva. But who do we worship him as? As the purest, highest Vaishnava. Because the Vaishnava can be worshipped as much as the Supreme Lord, but never with the conception that he is the Supreme Lord or he's greater than the Supreme Lord. So, this disciple of Rāmānujācārya named Quresh, when the Shaivites, because there were many worshippers of Lord Shiva, Shaivites, when they observed that many other Shaivites were being converted to Vaishnavism by the preaching of Rāmānuja, and they thought, oh, Rāmānuja is spoiling all of them. And then the Shaivites invited Rāmānuja to a debate in the kingdom. So, Quresh understood, oh, my Guru's life is in danger. And then Quresh requested Rāmānuja to change into ordinary clothing and to go to Sri Rangapatnam secretly. And then Quresh took the position of Rāmānuja with his clothing. And he went to the king's palace, Quresh did. And everyone there thought that he is Rāmānuja, because they had not seen Rāmānujācārya. So when Quresh arrived, then the Chola king asked him, do you believe that there is no other supreme truth beyond Lord Shiva? Shivat parataro nasti. Do you believe this? And then Quresh replied to the king, yes, there is asti. Dronam asti tatak param. He says, even a small unit is greater than Shiva. when this statement was heard by the king, he became infuriated. And he ordered his men to kill Quraysh. But one thing, the king remembered that Rāmānuja previously had saved his own daughter when she had the ghost, right? So instead of killing Quraysh, who they thought was Rāmānuja, what did he do? He told them to pluck out his eyes, because he read the Shastras with these eyes. Then he was left, just abandoned there, to maintain himself by begging for the remainder of his life. Now when Rāmānuja came to know of this, he ordered Quraysh to go to Lord Varadaraj, deity, and to ask for a boon. And then Quraysh went to Varadaraj. But what did Quraysh ask? He didn't want to ask for anything inauspicious, that something bad should happen to the Chola king who plucked out his eyes, or to his citizens of his country. Yes, because otherwise they would oppose the king. So then after he returned, Rāmānuja sent him back. After he returned from Varadaraj, then he sent him back. He said, "You did not ask anything from me. Please, I still require you for more service." In other words, you cannot serve me, Rāmānuja is saying, because now you're blind. So you should ask Varadaraj for some benediction so that now you can serve me. And then he went back to Varadaraj, and by the benediction of Varadaraj, Quraysh got his eyes back. His eyes came back again. Yes. And one thing about Quraysh, this will be the last thing, because see, this is very good Upadeshamrita classes. Do you know that we're studying the Upadeshamrita by hearing this? Huh? How to what? Exactly. Vaishnava etiquette. This is what is the crest jewel of the Upadeshamrita. That you'll become pure Vaishnava. How will you become pure Vaishnava? By hearing about the pure Vaishnavas. This is all part of Upadeshamrita. Yes or no? Yes. Don't worry. We're going to get to the Upadeshamrita. It's coming. It's already here. We're studying. So, you know that Quraysh, his memory was so sharp, it was like a photographic memory. Anything he would read, immediately it's there. So listen to this. Once Quraysh accompanied Rāmānuja to Kashmir. And in Kashmir they visited the temple of Vaishno Devi in the Shakti Peeth. Vaishno Devi. So the library in that place, it contained one very important great Shastra called Bodhayan Vritti. Now when Quraysh inquired if he could read the Vritti, the response was, no. The worms have eaten it. It's no longer readable. But Saraswati Devi, the goddess Saraswati Devi, presented the book to Rāmānuja. Quraysh read it day and night until he memorized it completely. Then later, when the Kashmiris, when they discovered that Rāmānuja and Quraysh were in possession of that book, they sent some men on horses to steal it. And then after they took the book, Rāmānuja became very unhappy. Why? Do you know why he became very unhappy? Because now he cannot read the book. But Quraysh told his guru, Guruji, I have read it. I have memorized it fully. So he reproduced the full book from memory And then he offered it to Rāmānuja.
Написал книгу и предложил своему гуру Рāmānuja.
Kuresh ki jai. So then later they compared that reproduced book to another book that was in the library, and it perfectly matched everything. So it was on the basis of that book, Odayan Vritti, that Rāmānuja went, that he used that book to write his commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, Sri Bhashya. You see. So, just to end the whole thing, Yadava Prakash, his first guru, Mayavadi guru, who wanted to kill him and was envious of him. Yes? What did he do? His mother had prophesied, because in a dream she saw that her son, Yadava Prakash, will be completely destroyed if he does not become the disciple of Rāmānuja. So in order to save his life, he became his disciple. So there's a couple more pastimes, but no, time is gone. And Prasadam is waiting for everyone. Yes, there's one section which says, I can go to hell to serve my Guru. Yes. Gaur Premanande. Shri Rāmānujācārya Disappearance Day ki. Tirobha Mahamahotsav Titi Shri Madhvācārya ki. Zaftra, tomorrow, Ekadasi Titi ki. And then after Ekadasi Titi is Varaha Dev, Varaha Dvadashi ki jai. Then after Varaha Dvadashi, next day, Nityananda Trayodasi ki jai. So many good days this week. And more good days next week also. Okay. Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Jai. Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Vrindai Tulsi Devaya. Vyai Keshavasya Krishna Bhakti Kadini. Satyavachaya Namo. Vancha Gopalubhyascha Vivasantu Vedacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo